here to do art with you again, and you'll have to excuse any background noise that you might hear. I think the neighbours might be doing a bit of a spring clean in their yard. I can hear it, hopefully you can't. So today what we're going to do is we're going to be creating an ANZAC Day artwork, given that this coming Saturday is ANZAC Day. Recognising it a little bit differently this year we are, but I think it'll still be a very special day anyway. So thank you for all those people in the previous few weeks for showing me their beautiful artworks, sharing them in the comments or private message. If you happen to do an ANZAC Day artwork today, I would love to see them. They all look so beautiful when I see them, all so different, but all equally beautiful, and I love the effort that you're putting into them as well. So today what we're going to be using is drawing paper again. So this is what we used last week and the week before too, I believe. So it's just a heavier weight paper, and we're going to be needing a grey lead pencil, an eraser, a brush, and we're going to be needing some black water-soluble markers, so just your normal sort of markers that you might have in your pencil case. And we're also going to use the watercolour that we made for last week as well, or some of us might have. This is where we use our old dried up spent markers. Take the lid off, pop them in a container upside down and add a bit of water. And it actually sucks all of the great colour out of the markers and turns it into a lovely watercolour. So I've got my red and my orange and my blue, green and yellow. We've been eating all of those colours today. So one of the emblems that we commonly see with ANZAC Day and Remembrance Day is the red poppy. So that's what our artwork's going to be based around. So we're going to be learning how to use basic shapes. And for some of you that are used to doing art classes with me, that's what I always teach you guys. Use basic shapes to get the basic structure of your drawing, and then we start adding in the detail. So we're going to be using circles and ovals. So I'm going to try and make sure I don't keep hiding this piece of paper, and I'll keep holding it up for you. Still waiting on my stand so that I can tip the whole thing over so that you can just look at my artwork only, but we shall make do in the meantime. So we're going to start off with a big circle just above halfway, a slightly smaller circle. You'll see how I'm using my whole arm, and I'm drawing nice and lightly because we don't really need these lines other than to see where to draw our flowers. And we're going to do a big oval here, and a small oval here, and another small oval here. I might tip that one on its side a little bit, so I might just rub that one out. And I will hold this up to show you. So here we go. I think you can see that. I'll hold it up so you can see it and not me. So we've got a large circle, a slightly smaller circle, a large oval and two smaller ovals. So our first flower, actually we might do smaller circles in the middle of this one, and a smaller oval in the middle of that one. And they're going to be the centre of our flowers. Okay, looks like people have forgotten. Sent out a reminder even yesterday, taught myself how to do that. Okay, so now for our first petal, slightly wavy on the outside, bring it into, I've forgotten a step. Now we're going to go back a bit. Center of these two flowers, where we've got our small circles, we are going to turn those into popcorn shapes. They kind of look like popcorns, or maybe flowers or clouds or splodges. Okay, you can see those in the middle. So you can see how I've drawn my first petal in this one. Now, I researched and poppies generally have between 4 and 6 petals. The ones that we're drawing today are going to have 5 petals, I decided. So slightly smaller petal here, and you can see that it's not directly opposite this one, okay? It's slightly off center. So next we're going to do 2 petals on this side, and we're going to do 1 petal on this side. And you can see that I've got them so that they're overlapping. Okay, so it makes it look like there is one in front of another. Okay, and you can see also here that these petals look like they're going right behind this smaller petal. Okay, next step, this flower. So we're basically just doing similar to the other one, but it's kind of in reverse. So I'll show you this step. So large petal, whoops, I think it's a mirror, but it's not a mirror, and a slightly smaller petal here. Again, leaving space for 2 petals up here and 1 petal down the bottom. So again, wavy edge, bring it into the center, another wavy edge, bring it behind our smaller petal, other side, wavy edge, bring it in behind. Okay, so you can see that we've got 2 poppies now, a larger one, a slightly smaller one. Hello Tanya, hello Kylie, I reckon maybe Nikki and Lexi. Hello Lexi. Okay, so our oval that we drew, we're going to turn this one into a flower. This one, sorry, I'm getting a bit mixed up with it not being a mirror. So we're going to do this one with 5 petals. So we're going to have our first petal actually cuts across the middle of our flower. I miss you guys. Across the middle of our flower, a wavy line. Then we're going to do like a bowl shape and take it down to the bottom edge of our oval. You see how it looks like a bowl? And we've taken it right down to the lower edge of our oval. Next we're going to take a line up from the middle, more wavy lines, bring it around. Okay, where is it? There, so we took it up from the middle, brought it around probably halfway so that it's in line across there. Brought it back into our bowl-shaped petal. We're going to do the same on the other side. Wavy line all the way around, like that. So at the moment we've got 3 petals on this one. We're going to add 2 more little ones just off to the edge. Okay, and that brings us around our full oval shape. Now we did our popcorn shapes in the middle of these 2 flowers. We're going to add a little bit of popcorn shape in the middle of this one too. So just a very wavy line. Okay, so you can see I'm pressing probably a little bit harder with these drawings just so that you guys can see them a bit more clearly. But you can also see the difference between these lines that I'm drawing and the initial circles and ovals that I drew. So the initial drawings were quite light. Okay. Now, these small ovals are actually the buds of our poppy flowers. So I'm going to leave a little gap at the top, but basically the rest of my line is following the oval shape. Can you see that little gap there? Small gap. And we're going to do a wavy S shape. So that's like where the bud is starting to open. Okay. You see the bud is starting to open. So still got that little gap at the top. What we're going to do now is we are going to draw our stems. And our stems are going to be basically wavy S shapes or curves. So I'm going to start with our buds. So if you've ever seen poppies in real life, when they have buds, they're actually droopy. They actually look like a shepherd's crook, you know how, or a walking stick. So they come up and down, and they go up and down. So I'm going to draw those now. Now remembering that stems have two edges. There's one side, one edge, and then the other edge, and they have very thin stems. So I'll do the other side. You can see I've drawn my lines wavy, not as wavy as the edges of the petals, but a slight wave, okay? Now I'm going to do, not an S shape, but it's probably more like a slight curve. This one we're going to have going behind our bud. See, it's going behind our bud. So we've stopped it at the bud and then we've continued the line underneath. This one we've just got a slight curve to it. Now this one will probably end up going behind either this flower or this bud. So let's have a look. Okay, I've got it going behind the flower, oh, and the bud. There we go. So you can see it's going behind the flower. So I drew my lines down to the flower, stopped, and then continued them on the other side. What you can do, if it's hard to work out where to start again, you can draw your lines really lightly first, draw them really light and draw them over the top of your flower. Keep going, just draw over the top of everything. Other side, keep drawing over the top of everything, but just really lightly. Then what you can do is you can rub out the lines where they cross over the flower and then go over your lines a little bit darker, okay? Now I'm going to add maybe one or two leaves. Now the leaves of poppies are usually found down the bottom of the stems, and they're actually long and slim. So I'm going to start off with a basic shape again. So long basic shape, and see how I've drawn lightly again? That's because that's not actually what the leaf looks like. So I'm just drawing a basic shape first, nice and lightly. And then they actually have long zigzag edges. So I'm just using that basic shape to follow along when I draw my long zigzags. And we'll do that main vein through the centre. Now I could do another leaf on there, but I'm happy with one leaf. Odd numbers always look good in artwork. That's why we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 flowers. Odd numbers. Okay, next step is we are going to do some writing on here. I thought we might use capital letters. I'm going to write ANZAC Day. Up the top, 2020. Not pressing too hard, and I might write lest we forget, which basically means let's make sure we remember and not forget. Okay, ANZAC Day 2020, lest we forget, and I'm going to draw an outline around these. You can use a ruler if you like. And around this one, oh, excuse that noise, that's my dog wanting to come inside. I think maybe she can stay outside. Okay, so there's my outline. Next step, take our water-soluble markers, and what we're going to do is we're going to go over all of our lines now. All of our lines, and when we go over our lines with our flowers, we're going to add in a little bit of extra. Okay, this one. dots around the edge. Okay, this one, I reckon I should have done this step earlier. Then we could have had the magic of television. Saves you watching me do all of this bit. Won't take me too long anyway. Gives you a chance to catch up anyway. I hope you're going okay. Okay, more dots around the edge. We're coming up to the good bit soon. The colourful bit. I love that bit. And go over those S shapes. Now my markers aren't working too good, so I'm going to swap over because that one's starting to dry out a little bit. Okay, this one. If they're drying out, I might need to add them to some water and make some black watercolour. Okay, a few dots. Okay, another bud. Okay, now my stems. Now, you can rub, once you've finished going over your lines with marker, you can rub out your pencil lines if you wish. I'm not going to. I'm just going to leave them there, and if they show through the watercolour a little bit, that's okay. Even my initial shapes, I'm not going to bother rubbing those out either. Most of them should be pretty light, so you won't really be able to see them anyway. Okay, this stem, then I've just got my writing to do. Might just do the box for now actually, and I'll explain to you why I'm not going to actually do the writing right at this moment. I'm going to save the writing until last. Okay, so there we are. I think I've done all of my tracing, all of my lines. Got my boxes sorted where my type is going, and I've left my writing in pencil. If you've gone over it in marker for now, don't worry about it. It won't really matter. You just have to be a little bit more careful later on, but that's okay. You can do that. Okay, the fun bit. Now, because we have used water-soluble markers, then that means that we're going to have some interesting things and some lovely looking things happening when we start adding our watercolour paint. So I've got a few containers of water here. You'll only need one, but just you might need to change it in between colours. So I'm going to start off with red, load up my paintbrush and start adding. Now, because we've used water-soluble markers, it actually means that it starts to what's called bleed into your colour. So you can, I'll show you in a sec actually. Now that's the one thing about using watercolours with you guys, is that with the camera where it is, it makes it really hard to show you without everything dribbling everywhere. Let's give it a go. You can see that the black marker is starting to bleed into the watercolour. Okay, now you can see that I worked relatively quickly just so that my red stayed wet when I added my orange, so then they could bleed into each other and make some new and interesting colours and patterns. So I'm going to do that with the rest of my petals. If I can work quick enough, I might even be able to do two at once without drying too much. Let's see how I go. Orange. Oh, only just. Might be easier and better to do one at a time. So I'm even washing my brush out between my red and orange use. It's just a habit, I guess. I like to keep my colours nice and pure so that I don't mix them up with anything else. Because once you start getting colours mixing in with each other in your in your palette or in your paint container, then you start getting dirty looking colours. And I like my colours looking nice and fresh. I like my red to stay red and my orange to stay orange. Okay, another one. Now, in this, I'm going to save the centre actually. I'm going to start off with my next red flower. Okay, you can see this one. Okay, you can see how it's all bleeding into each other, creating, and it's kind of magical, and it's like a little bit of the unknown when you're creating artworks with watercolours. You're never 100% as far as what sort of effect you're going to end up with, which is kind of pretty special. I quite like that. Sometimes you get good surprises, sometimes not such good surprises. Okay. Now I hope you guys have all got some sort of watercolour to use. If you don't have actual watercolour paint, you can do like what I have done and use old markers. Hello, Shana. You can use old markers and create paints using those. Take the lids off, turn them upside down in a container, add a bit of water, or you can use, if you have food dye as well. Food dye gives really vibrant colour. Don't use it straight. Add a bit of water. We use those a lot at school. The colours are so vivid. So I do like using them. They do stain a little bit though. Okay, one more red flower. So you can see that I'm adding red and orange to each petal. Oh, that's a little bit dull. Let's add a bit more colour. Adding red and orange to each petal. I just like the extra colour that it gives when they blend with each other. Just makes them look a bit more interesting when you add a couple of colours. Oh, that's a lot of liquid on that one. And this one. And nearly done. Oh. Okay, so I'll carefully try and hold it up for you. It'll be easy to see once it's dry. There you go, you can see that top flower is, the liquid started to soak in so far. And starting to dry, these bottom ones still quite wet. I have added a lot of liquid to them. It is a good idea when you do watercolour to actually allow it to dry flat. Or if you want to create different interesting effects, you can actually hold it up and use your watercolour paint and let it all dribble down, which is also kind of nice too. Now I'm going to use different water now, fresh water, because I'm moving on to green for my stems. So green. Now I am going to leave a slight gap between where the green goes near the red of my flowers, because if I go too close, then we'll start getting the red and green bleeding into each other, and we'll start getting some murky browns, which is fine if that's what you want, but for this one, I don't want it. So I'll go over my leaves, and again we'll have the bleeding of the black marker into our colour. Oh, I might have gone a bit close with that one. We'll see what happens. If you do happen to touch the paint, it's not the end of the world. It just means you get to create new and interesting colours. Oops. Okay. So just checking that you can see it, that I haven't moved it right out of camera view. Okay, so there's all my green. Now I'm going to add the yellow. Now with the yellow, I'm going to add it to the centre of our flowers and to the open part of the bud. Oops, ended up a bit green there. And this one. Again, that'll start bleeding into the other colours. This one. And I'm also going to add a little bit to the stems as well. Not all over it, just parts of it. And what that does is it actually helps to make parts of the green stem a bit more vibrant, a bit brighter. Because my green that I created out of the markers did end up a little bit on the dull side. So this yellow that I'm adding to it will just help to lift it a little bit. So you can see what that has done there. Something else that I noticed the other day when I was doing this is when you add the watercolour to the stems and the black starts to bleed, you actually end up with these little textural bits on the side of the marker, which actually gives you more of the look of what the poppy stems do look like. They're actually a little bit on the hairy side. They do have little fibrous bits coming off them, so I thought that actually was quite true to life, the effect that it actually gives. So what we're going to do now is we're actually going to do a background. Now the background, I'm just going to get some fresh water again. The background we're going to do a little bit different. We are going to use water for part of our background, then we're going to add some watercolour to the water. I'm going to use blue and green for my background, which will be a nice contrast with the flowers, I believe. So it'll make the flowers really pop out. Sorry, I keep moving this out of frame. I need to sit back here a bit, don't I? Okay, so I'm going to just do part of the water in the background, and I'm going to stay probably about 5 millimeters, about this much, away from all of my drawing or my painting, because I don't want any of this water or the colour I'm about to add, I don't want it blending in with my flowers or my stems. So I'm just adding water. I'm doing this bit rather quickly because I want the surface to stay wet when we add the colour. So I'm just going to do a section at a time. So I'm just going to go up as far as this. So I've done this section through here. I've just loaded up my brush with blue, and I'm just going to touch it onto the water. How beautiful does that look? I like it. And then I'm going to add a little bit of green. You can just keep it to blue if you like, or you can add a bit of green as well. Okay, so you can see along there, probably hard for you to see. Actually, I'll show you with one that I've already made. You can see how, you can actually see where I had the water going up to, because the colour has only bled as far as the edge of the wet background. It hasn't gone beyond. Okay, so you can see how I've left that gap all the way around the edge of my flowers. I don't think I've touched it anywhere. No, I might have come close over here. You can see how I've just stayed away. So rinse my brush out, add some more water, start off where we left off. And I thought it would look really nice if we took the water up to the frame that we did around our letters. That way, trying to go right over the top of the lines, because we want the frames to bleed out into the background but not into the inside of the rectangles that you drew. So I'm just going to finish off this part. Now I'm going to do a bit more blue there. Rinse my brush, grab a bit of green. Okay, now I'm going to carefully go in between. Move this so that you can see. some good brush skill practice here, guys. Now with my brush, I've used the same brush for everything, flowers and background. Probably if you didn't have fiddly bits to go around in the background, you could probably use a bigger brush. I've just decided to use the one brush for all of it though. Okay, more blue. Okay, a bit of green now. Okay, now I might actually turn this around. It'd be a bit easier, which is a good thing to do, guys, rather than reaching right across your artwork to get to the other side where you might risk smudging something. Just slide your artwork around, so then you're working with the part that's closest to you. Because we're painting the background now, it's not really important for us to make sure that our artwork is up the right way. So you can just keep turning it around, and that way you get to paint the edge that's closer to you. So this is going to be a tricky bit too. He's painting the inside of shapes without actually going near the edge. See how I went? Not bad. Bit of green. That's my brush. Oh, this is a very little space. I'll do this little space at the same time. Blue. Green. Okay, so I need to remember I'm going up close to this edge, but I'm staying away from my flower edge. Working relatively quickly in your larger spaces so that your water doesn't dry out. We want it to stay wet, so that then our colour disperses when we add it. Okay, a bit of green. And more water. Go all the way through here, rather than just doing it a piece at a time. You can do smaller areas if you like. I'm able to move a little bit quicker because I'm a little bit more practiced, but if you want to do smaller spaces first, then certainly do that. Okay? You don't have to work as quickly as me. And a bit of green. And one last little shape down the side here, keeping away from my stem. And a bit of blue. And a bit of green. And there, I think we might be done actually. I'm just going to do a little bit of green down here. There. Now I think that might be it. Okay, so I won't lift this one right up to show you, simply because it might just pour off the edge of my page. Okay, but you can see how it looks when it's wet. Now, just so that you know why, I didn't go over my writing with the marker initially, because I thought if I happen to get water on there, it'll all bleed everywhere, and that's not what I want to happen. So I thought what I'll do is I'll just draw it in pencil first, so I know the shape of my rectangle box. Then I will leave it, and once my whole artwork is dry, then I can go over it in black marker then. So this is today's, and this is the one that I showed you a part of before. So this is it all dry. So you can see I've now written in my writing You can see all of the beautiful bleeding everywhere. You can see how it dries. It dries quite vibrant still. I did 2 leaves, 3 flowers. You can see all the lovely bleeding from the marker as well. So there's your artwork, guys. I hope you had lots of fun. It's so much fun doing this artwork. I love using the marker that bleeds into your watercolour while you're using it. You get some lovely, exciting results from it. So I think that's about all. So if you do happen to do an artwork, I would love to see it. And yep, I'll give you a call out next week and just tell you how impressed I am with each child's work. And adults, if there's any adults that would like to do one as well. So I hope you have lots of fun doing this, guys. And I shall see you next week. Bye.